welcome to another episode of What Are You Selling with me, David Green. And today, not only am I joined by someone from the northwest of England like myself, but on the wrong side of the East Lancs Road, unfortunately. It's also another Dave. I am joined by Dave, D.E. McCluskey. How are you doing today?
Okay, David, how are you? You all right?
Very good, very good. Yeah,
I don't know about being on the wrong side of the East Lancs Road.
There'll be a few people watching this that'll be like, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah, there'll be a few Yanks who are going, what's the East Lancs Road?
I went to, for a little while, I went to college in St. Helens.
Okay.
Which is the East Lancs Road goes right through it. Like that's the only reason it exists is because
it's the most northern place in the entire world, East St. Helens. It really is.
Yeah. That whole area, St. Helens, Widnes, Runcorn, and Skelmersdale, which is the weirdest name for anything ever.
But there's a place called Pimbo, which is just right outside of Skelmersdale, which I think is great. It's the maddest name of a place ever. Right, but I used to be in a band. We played in St. Helens, and I remember that halfway through the first set, the manager taking the mic off the lead singer to tell everyone that the black pudding was ready, and everybody filed out the room. And he came back in with these plates of boiled black pudding. I don't know whether you've ever seen boiled black pudding.
I love black pudding. It's
black pudding's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But have you seen it boiled?
You know,
it's brown.
I don't know if I have, to be honest.
Yeah, it's brown. It's brown and it comes in chubs, so you can imagine what that looks like on your plate.
Again, there's going to be some people that are going to be like, because we have quite a lot of American people watching this, and they'll be like, black pudding. I don't think it travels across there, does it?
They call it blood pudding, don't they?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Blood pudding is what we're talking
blood pudding. Yeah.
Really big in Ireland, actually. It's a big thing. But there's a funny thing about it, because obviously I live in Ireland now. We're talking just before we came up. And Irish breakfast. So what?
Oh, full Irish.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, it makes me laugh all the time. Is that it's basically the same as English breakfast, but it has chips.
It has Ulster fry and white pudding. Oh, now you're talking.
There we go.
Yeah. So, square. There's nothing like a square sausage.
Right, so people will be like, "What are we on a cooking program?" One of my very good friends, who's an author as well. He's from Macclesfield, so Manchester. So whenever we get onto one of these kind of things, we always start talking about. Do you remember this kind of? It turns out that because he lived in Manchester for quite a time. And it turns out that we were in a lot of the same places at the same time, but we didn't know.
Oh, right, yeah.
So it was always like, were you were there for this? And he was like, yeah. And then he used to be a chef at Old Trafford. So I was always at Old Trafford as well.
Right, okay. Yeah, there you go.
So, kind of stuff. But we're always like...
Along with 45,000 other people.
A lot. Back in those days. Whenever we start talking about all these things, I'm like, come on, let's talk about your books. Let's talk about this, and we'll try and get someone to buy one of your books.
Every time I come onto a podcast, though, we always end up talking about some obscure things, like shrimp or something like that. You know, it's like handbags. You know, I very seldom end up selling me books. It's just talk about anything else. Motorways is always a good one.
Motorways, yeah. Well, motorways is it's an interesting discussion.
Can't beat a good motorway.
That's right. But the show is called What Are You Selling? So we are trying to, if we sell at least one book, we've done okay. So people that are watching at home, well, obviously you're going to be watching. Well, you may not be watching at home. You could be watching on the bus. You could be doing anything. You're watching us on YouTube, or you're listening to us on Spotify or Anchor FM or Apple Music. And this is your first time. Please subscribe to us. There is more stuff on the channel. There are other author interviews, live readings, reviews. There's also the Wheel of Time show called Ease and the Reader. So please do check those out and leave us a like and leave us a comment as well. All of Dave's links will be in the show notes as well. So please do check those out and check up Dave's work. Now, it's an interesting one, this one, because we were talking before about how, before we started recording, that you like to work across all different types of genre. But the reason you're mainly here at the moment is because you're launching a book on the 26th of May. So it's Thursday. So this is Wednesday when you're watching this, by the way.
Right. Okay. So this is in the future.
So it's out tomorrow. And all the links are below. So this is your first. Not only is it your first kind of foray into fantasy, but it can be a difficult market to get into. And I've done similar to what you've done, where I kind of worked quite a bit in horror and a few other kind of things and moved into it. But it's also, children's one as well. To go from horror to and other things that you do. You said you do romance, you've done other things. So what I've been wanting to ask you since we arranged to do this mainly was like, why did you pick to do your first one into fantasy from all the other things that you've done? What was it? Where did Glimmer, which is the name of the book, the Glimmer Saga Book 1, where did that come from?
Do you know, it's a crazy question that people always ask me, because I very first started off in writing comics and graphic novels, and I started off writing horror for children, and it just sort of expanded from there. So I started writing all the stories that I would write. I'd write them in rhyme, so it would be like a really gory zombie story, but it'd be written in rhyme. And then what I would do is I would expand the rhyme and story into a comic or a graphic novel. But then just odd things just dropped into my head. And it's like an earworm, when you listen to a song on the radio, or you just get a snippet of a song and it just bangs through your head all day. But I get that with stories, with tales. So it doesn't make a difference what it is, whether it's horror, whether it's a thriller, whether it's a children's book. It just bounces bang, 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 bang around my head. And I have to get it out. So I always have my mobile phone with me. One time I haven't got my mobile phone with me just in case it rings. But I always have my mobile phone with me. So I use the notes function on the mobile phone, and I get it down as soon as it starts banging through my head, because then once it's out, it's out. So the idea for Glimmer just popped into my head. It was just it's a story about red and it's a story about blue. Now, consider that the conversation that we've just had prior to coming on about football. Both they've got these orbs, and one's red and one's blue, but both of them, neither one's bad and neither one's good, and neither one's more powerful than the other. It's just one happens to be blue and one happens to be red. But the person who holds them two glimmers together has unlimited power. I've always had a little bit of a fantasy about unlimited power and what unlimited power brings, the pitfalls of it, and obviously the good that you can do with it and stuff like that. So it's a good versus evil, and it's always been there. And I've always, and this is going to sound cliche, it's probably going to sound like, yes, I read them years before the television show came out, but I've always been a massive fan of the songs of Ice and Fire. Read them years ago when I was in university. I mean, the books are like that thick, aren't they? You know what I mean? They're like that's not how tall they are, that's how thick they are. But always loved them books. So I always thought to myself, if I ever did write a fantasy book, I would try to emulate something around that. And then when the show came out, I thought, this is going to be rubbish. And it wasn't. So it kind of became a little bit popular. So I changed Glimmer, because originally Glimmer was full of mutilations and gore and sex, and like what Game of Thrones was, because it was based on that premise from all the way back again. But because it became so popular, I thought I'll make it into a younger audience, a YA fantasy. So that's where it come from. Basically, it was my attempt at being Game of Thrones, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
But actually finishing the stories.
I was going to say, hopefully you're going to finish it. But it's a funny thing with them. I mean, it's cast, that series has cast such a long shadow over fantasy, particularly the TV show, because there's a lot of things like, I've read, I think the first 3 books, I never bothered finishing. I don't bother with the 4th and 5th one. Seen the TV, obviously. I like it well enough. But I do get a lot of comparison, like not quite as in tone. Mine isn't my epic fantasy isn't quite as it's not as gratuitous as the Song of Ice and Fire, and violence and what have you. But it's violence for sure is there, but you still get a lot of people that maybe haven't read that much fantasy and they're like, this is kind of like Game of Thrones. And it's funny because I even find myself doing it. So when I talk, especially in real life, when I'm talking to people that know that I write, but they don't read fantasy, I'm like, it's like Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the thing. It's the new Lord of the Rings, isn't it? Because 20 years ago, everything that was fantasy was, and how does it compare to Lord of the Rings? And you could never get away from that. Yeah. But now it's, how does it compare to Song of Ice and Fire, or how's it, or Game of Thrones as people know it? But so what I did is I tried to make it as different as I could.
Right.
From it, because I'd wrote it to sort of emulate it years ago. Well, I come up with the idea years ago, and I wrote it to. So I really worked hard to try and make it sort of like a little bit different. But I can still see now when I'm reading it now, or I'm reading passages and stuff like that. I cringe a little bit when I think to myself, oh, that's what Tyrion would say, or that's what one of the Lannisters would do, and I think to myself,
yeah. Yeah, well, that is the way, isn't it? You can't. I mean, you even go and look at some of the classics in fantasy. Like some of the real classics that are very, very inspired by Lord of the Rings. Some not on purpose, some on purpose.
Yeah.
And then you have Terry Brooks that just basically ripped it off and was like,
he just ripped it. Yeah, completely and utterly. Yeah.
But he was only.
But as you say, go on. Yeah.
He was only a kid when he wrote the first one, so that's like, the younger that you are, it's harder to not do, I think, because it's, you saying before you're in a band, you're a musician. Probably when you first started playing music, you probably just emulated all the music that you liked because that.
I was Black Sabbath / Thin Lizzy through and through. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But as you said before about the saga, all 3 parts are written and all 3 parts are going to be out this year.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, because what I'm not a fan of, coming back to George R.R. Martin, is just making people wait for that ending. So I made sure that, it's something I've been writing for about 5-6 years, and I wanted to make sure that I could bring the books out within months of each other.
Okay.
So they're all written, they're all edited, they've all got covers, and they're all just ready. I could actually release all 3 of them on tomorrow, but I just got to do it one at a time because I don't want people to spend all the hard-earned money. Got to give other people a go, haven't we? Do you know what I mean?
That's right. Let's spread it all around. I mean, I've got a book out next month, so just wait until July.
I'll wait until what we do is you can read my book now, your book next month, and then my book the week after. Yeah, there you go. So made out to go round.
Yeah. So like obviously you're writing a lot of different genres. It sounds like you're reading a lot of different genres too. Is there anything? I
read whatever tickles me fancy. I've just read. It's bizarre because I read a lot of stuff and then it becomes popular because I've just read the Slow Horses series, and I've just found out. I found out a couple of weeks ago that it's starting on. Is it Apple TV or something like that? And I'm thinking, I'm stoked by that because I loved them. I think they're absolutely fantastic. So I'll read anything. I'll read thrillers. I tend not to read any Patterson because he does me nothing.
Well, he doesn't even write his own books anyway. So.
No, he's got a farm now, hasn't he? He owns a farm. Yeah.
Who knows who's writing those books? I always laugh about the. The one they brought out with Bill Clinton. It's like, I wonder who wrote that book because neither of those guys did it.
No. But it's like Stephen King as well. Stephen King these days, I mean, growing up, the very first adult book I ever read when I was about 10 or 11, I think it was Skeleton Crew, which was an anthology of Stephen King's horror. It's the one with Scott Salem's lot in. It's got a few others that he's made famous as well. Mm-hmm. And that was my very first one, and I picked that up and I read it in a weekend because they were only short stories. And then the very next day after I'd finished it, I went out and bought The Stand.
Right.
And that was it. Then it was like I'd gone through Stephen King as like some of his bizarro and some of his darker horror short stories straight into this like epic thriller / horror / survival. Yeah. It was just everything you ever wanted in a book. Mm-hmm. But now Stephen, I mean, Stephen King now.
He's changed his style quite a lot now, hasn't he? Like, he's a lot more. It's funny because I think there's people that maybe didn't like Stephen King before like him now, like a lot of his newer stuff, because it's a lot more plot-based.
Yeah. One of his more recent books called Revival really is like it's a Marmite book, because I read groups of people, pages and pages and pages of people like who absolutely love it. They love absolutely everything about it. I think it's his worst book, or one of his worst books. I really hated it, but it's like, I don't know. It's different now, but I'm actually of the thought, and this isn't a very popular thought, but I'm actually of the thought that Stephen King might be like a bit of a farmer these days as well.
I think so. There is the rumor. There is the rumor of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's just.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if he is or not, but I do know for sure, like by just reading the stuff, that his style has definitely changed.
It's so changed. Yeah. He brought out a novella the other year, and it was the last Castle Rock one. It was called Elevation.
Right.
Was it? And it wasn't Stephen King. I mean, it was Castle Rock, and the people who were in it were very Castle Rock, but it wasn't Stephen King. It didn't have his voice. People talk about like a writer's voice. It didn't have Stephen King's voice. I was like, oh.
The thing is, as well, with Stephen King is what we all have to bear in mind is that a lot of his stuff, he doesn't do drugs anymore. So, and he's not an and he doesn't drink, and he doesn't do drugs. So like, who knows?
Sorry, mate, my glamorous assistant's just offering me a coffee, so I might.
That's good. No, he doesn't do drinks and drug anymore. So it's like,
there you go. So yeah, so it's like when Aerosmith stopped doing drinking drugs, didn't they?
Right.
And their music went downhill. Yeah.
Yeah. So that this might be the real Stephen King that we're all seeing now.
Yeah, the one who might not have got a big book deal in the first instance.
Right.
Now, I mean, some of his recent stuff's been good. I've liked that Outsiders, and I've liked the Mr. Mercedes stuff that he did.
Yeah, it is more plot based than it used to be. It's like you don't really get that. Like Brandon Sanderson, I remember he does his he puts a lot of his writing classes on YouTube, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Go and watch, and he was talking about one time about in media res, which is when do you start a scene? When you're doing a scene, and he was like, you have some, and he was using like an example where he was like, different depending on the genre, depending on the writer, and all this kind of stuff, you'll do it differently. So he was like, for example, he said there's someone robbing a bank. So you'll have some people that'll start the scene with the person with a gun in the hand in front of the teller saying, "Give me all your money." Yeah. And you'll get some people then will start with the person next in line, so they're kind of thinking, just they'll set up the scene and all that kind of stuff, and then they'll go next. And then you'll have some people that'll be the guy arrives into the bank and set the scene that way. And he says, and then you'll have Stephen King, who will have the guy robbing the bank you'll see in the night before going to bed.
Yeah, you'll see him at the car dealership going, oh, I wonder if this one's it's fast enough to get and he's like, he does go to the nth degree.
And he's like, I like Stephen King and I like that, but Stephen King like does this with the characters, and you'll find out all these different things about this guy's life before he goes and does the thing where most people he doesn't do that anymore.
No, but he brought out, saying that, he brought out a book with his son not so long ago called Sleeping Beauties, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Sleeping, which it wasn't Joe Hill, no, it was his other son, it was Owen King he brought it out with. And you know what? It's about 300 odd pages, no, it's about 600 pages, and it must be around about 160,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about a 5,000 word novella wrapped up in 160,000 words. It's awful. It's the worst book by him I've ever read. Oh my God. I was just like, I can't DNF a book. I've never done it.
Right.
I very nearly came close to DNFing The Godfather.
Oh yeah.
Now I'm a huge fan of the Godfather films, but I think Mario Puzo's writing was just so childish. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's very different. The film is very, very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. She's just got she's a good one. She's a keeper, that one. Yeah.
So Stephen King is he has one of my and this is talking about reviews. One of my favorite anecdotes of Stephen King's is the whole the name just slipped out. What was the pseudonym that he had that time when he
Richard Bachman.
Richard Bachman, yeah. So when he did like Carrie and he did a few other things, and they were obviously successful. And there was like one critic for the New York Times that used to like hammer him, say he was trash and this and this and this, right?
Yeah.
So he did the first Bachman book, and obviously it was only his editor and Stephen King that knew. They released it, and this same guy that hated Stephen King's books said Richard Bachman is the author Stephen King wishes he was. And it's so
I've never heard that story. Yeah,
no, it's a great one. Like it's so funny because it's like when you talk about reviews, and it just kind of sparked my head, is because sometimes it doesn't matter what the book is like and how good or bad the book is. If you don't like someone, if you
go to
but
it's also trolls as well. I mean, Stephen King wouldn't have had to deal with like trolls, would he? Do you know what I mean? Like talking about fiction writing, fantasy and stuff like that. But there's some people who they'll just 1 star you for absolutely. They won't even read the book. They'll just give you a 1 star. Every one of my books on Goodreads, this must have been about a year ago, maybe 18 months at the very. In the same night, every single one of my books received a 1 star, no review rating. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I made up because I think to myself, it's another number next to the name of the book. So there you go. Thanks, kids.
Right.
But I don't mind negative reviews. If someone does a negative review of my book and they say, wasn't for me, I'm going to give it 1 star because it could have been better, could have been this, that, and the other. Got no problem with that whatsoever. Got no issue with it whatsoever, because I know I'm not stupid enough to think that everybody's going to love my books.
Right.
And I know that I don't like books that other people like. So if you give me a 1 star review, fair enough, as long as you tell me why you give me that 1 star review. But I think an awful lot of people chicken out a little bit, and they actually just think, oh, I'm just going to give a 1 star review and run away.
Right. I'm the same. Like, I generally, I've only had a couple of 1 star reviews, and both of them were very much more about the person reviewing it than the actual book.
Than the book, yeah.
It was like some very angry things that they were saying about women in particular and some other stuff. But like, I had a few
crazy,
I've had a few 2 and 3 star reviews, and you always kind of appreciate it when someone takes the time to articulate the thoughts, because
I've got no problem with it. Because like my first novel, my debut novel, not a graphic novel or a comic, my debut novel was a book called The 12, and it's my bestseller book to this day. It sells. I'm getting sales every day. I'm getting page reads every day and stuff like that, and people are still buying physical copies off me and stuff like that. So it's one of my best sellers. Not making £1 million on it, but it was my very first book. So a lot of the reviews, I think it's on something like 4.2 out of 5 stars at the moment on 250 odd reviews, and a lot of the early ones. A lot of the lower star ones are, this author obviously didn't know what to do with his commas. Someone gave him a big bag of commas and he just threw them into the book and stuff like that. Because, you're learning, aren't you? It's your first novel.
Sure, yeah.
And I've learned from the reviews that people have given me, the negative reviews of The 12. I mean, there's not loads of them, but there's a few. I've learned from it, and I think that from that novel and moving on and on and on and writing in different genres and writing a number of different books, you're learning, aren't you? You're learning. Every book is a new learning curve.
Right.
So I always say to people, if you didn't like my first book, give me 6th one a go.
Right, keep trying. Just keep going. And
keep going. Yeah.
So is that why? I was going to ask you about write in different genres? Like, I know you're interested in them, you read in different genres, and you get
Yeah.
that idea. But is that part of the reason as well? Is it because you're wanting to learn and you're wanting to improve and see experience?
It's like eating ice cream.
Right.
Right. My favorite flavor ice cream is, without a doubt, the most boring flavor you can get, vanilla. I absolutely love vanilla ice cream. Whenever I get ever gives me the options for ice cream, I'll go with vanilla most of the time. But occasionally I like mint chocolate chip, and occasionally I like butter coffee, butter toffee, or whatever it's called. And you know, occasionally I like tutti frutti and stuff like that, because you know, they're not bad in themselves. But so horror is my vanilla,
right?
Yeah, but fantasy is my butterscotch, and yeah, you know, so I like thrillers are my chocolate chip, mint chocolate chip, and yeah, so it's like that. Okay, you don't always want to write or read horror. You want to cleanse your soul a little bit every now and again. Do you want to cleanse my soul?
Yeah. Of course, yeah. You go to some dark places when you're writing horror.
Mate, you do, because I also write extreme horror as well.
Right.
I mean, the guys who read my extreme horror know that I'm not a huge fan of extreme horror. It's not a genre that I've ever really read intensively. But it's a genre that I don't mind writing in, because you can just go, you can just let yourself go, and there's absolutely no censorship whatsoever. Nothing is off the table. I mean, there's stuff off the table for me. I wouldn't never write about child rape or nothing like that. No, like not in depth or anything like that. But there's abuse and stuff like that, but it's all sort of happens in the background. But so my extreme horrors are quite popular with the extreme horrors flick fans, and everybody always asks how, because I've got a book called Zola, and a couple of the women who do the review shows on like Mothers of Mayhem and stuff like that, they voted Zola as one of the most extreme horror books that they'd ever read, and they read them all the time. They read them day in, day out. And so I was quite made up with that. I was like, it was happy days. But then the girl read my Seagull Tale book next, and she was like, "The fuck?" she's like, "What?" Because even though I write in different genres, I've still got my voice. So I mean, because I'm quite into this The Voice type vibe that, and I always think that Stephen King, early Stephen King, and mid-table Stephen King, he's just got this fabulous voice that talks to you. It just it's got its own accent, it's got its own colloquialisms, it's got everything. It talks to you. So that's what I've always wanted to do. So when I go through my cross genres, I always try to make sure that I've got the same voice telling the kid's story as the same voice that's telling the extreme horror story. It's just two different ends of the spectrum, so to speak.
The same voice telling a slightly a different tone of story, I suppose.
Yeah. One's Vincent Price and one's Vinnie Price.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously you say Glimmer, which again, just to remind everyone listening or watching, is out tomorrow. So please check that out. You're going to have the whole 3 out this year. So are you going to be back to bring your voice back to fantasy at any time? Have you got
any ideas? I've got a couple of ideas for a couple of other fantasy books. I don't know whether I'm going to do as big an arc as it did with the 3 books. It might just be a one-off standalone, longer story, and there will be horror themes within it. I'm not too sure whether I'll do a YA book again, because I felt it was quite restricting. Because people always say, write what you know, and I'm a white middle-aged man. So what do I know what the kids of today want? So what I mean? I've read the Hunger Games, and that's about as good as it got for me.
Yeah, I've not tried YA for for that particular kind of, because there's a lot of things about YA that you have to really kind of hit. Like it's not only is it what's in the story, and it's the way it's told as well.
It's the way it's told, and it's the interactions between the characters and stuff like that. And you've got to have you've got. I mean, I try to always have like strong female characters in all my books. Sure. Because I mean, you know, I'm not a feminist or nothing. I'm just like a normal everyday bloke. But I always think that the women's place, I think it's you know, it's more important than the man's, because of the fact that like she carries the babies and she brings the babies into this world, and therefore we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for the woman. So right. I've always got a strong female voice in all my books, but it's difficult to do it as a strong female post-adolescent voice. Right. I mean, I've got my daughter's 14, so I tried to sort of like channel a little bit of right. I tried to channel a bit of that into the book, but it's difficult. So I think I've done YA, and I think that my 3 books here are that's me done with YA, I would say, for now anyway, unless something else pops into me head. But yeah, I will definitely be going down the fantasy route again, because I just love it. You've got everything. You can use your horror themes, you can use your science fiction themes, you can mingle loads of different tropes. You can put your romance in. By the very nature of it, it's a thriller. It's, you know, it's everything really, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's not too far away from horror either. I mean, it came from the same place. They both came from the Gothic.
Yeah.
They both kind of spun out from there. You know, the biggest British fantasy convention, FantasyCon, is the British Fantasy and Horror Society as well, right? You know, you know, the bedfellows there. You know,
I keep meaning to get myself into, try and get my feet under the table at that one, but
yeah, it's good. I went to it last year in Birmingham. It was it was good. A bit weird being back in England during the pandemic and everything, but other than that, it was all right. But yeah, it's on again this year at Heathrow Airport. So
was it? Right, that's a bit too far for me, that though. At the time being,
it's actually easy for me to get over. It's just like I just get on the plane and just.
Well, yeah, you're just like, I'm there. Hello.
It's like, this is great doing at airports all the time. This is fantastic.
I've got to get about 16 different trains and 3 fit horses, and I could get there then. Yeah, exactly. I carried all my books over my bag as well. Yeah, my bag's over, my bag over my books, whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. So, other than Glimmer, is there anything else that you've got coming out this year or coming up this year, or?
Well, yeah, this year is 5. There's 5 books getting brought out this year. Excellent. So first one's already out, which is, I've got a copy of it here. I'm not disorganized, right? I'm really not. It's just that, like, I've sold this book and there's a guy coming knocking for it, so I don't mind showing it. But the first one that came out this year was A Seagull's Tale. Mm-hmm. That is a pure children's book. It's just, nobody dies in this book. That's yeah, there you go. That's a spoiler for you. Hashtag spoilers, no one dies. So that's Dave McCluskey. I write that one as Dave. I write the children's books as Dave. Right. And my books are from DE. Yes. So A Seagull's Tale's come out. Glimmer's coming out tomorrow. Yeah. And then I've got the sequel to the second part. It's not a sequel, it's the second part of the saga, which is going to be coming out in August, which is called The City of the Fireflies. Mm-hmm. The title inspired by a lyric from a Queen song. So I'll just leave that there with you and see if anybody can understand which Queen song it is. And then the third part will be out in December, which is called The Throne of Glim. Mm-hmm. Not inspired by any Queen songs. And then in the middle of that, I've got a extreme horror novella coming out called The Special Stuff, which is horrible. I can imagine. Like, yeah, a lot of my partner, she does all my proofreading. She does the final proofread of every book that I bring out, but she won't go anywhere near the extreme horrors.
Yeah, I like horror, but I think extreme horror is I don't go into it that much.
I'm the same as you. My favorite genre of book, my favorite trope in a horror book, I love haunted house books. Right. Okay. Absolutely love them. But there's so many out there that it's difficult. Now, I've actually just finished yesterday reading The House on Cold Hill, or Cold Hill House.
Okay.
And then the author's name is just gone. He's dead famous. I think he sold out 16 million copies of that book. But it's a haunted house story, but and it's a bit generic for me. Great ending, by the way. Not going to spoil it for nobody, but a great ending. But the actual story running up to it was a little bit generic. So I haven't actually wrote a haunted house book yet, but I'm in the process of fleshing one out now, which is going to be called The Old Reap House.
Right.
So yeah, so that's my favorite show. But mainstream horror for me that's where it's at. I just love mainstream horror.
Great
every day of the week. Yeah.
So Dave, obviously all the notes will be below for people, but just from your own mouth, where are the best places to find you on the internet?
I'm all over Facebook. I was Facebook murdered, so I have now had to come up with a new Facebook profile, because for some reason I don't even know what I did. I really don't know what I did, but Facebook closed down. I had 3 profiles. I had D.E. McCluskey, I had Damage Productions, and I had my own profile. They closed them down. They closed my Messenger down, and they closed my Instagram down. And I was like, so I've had to start again afresh. But I'm on D.E. McCluskey on Facebook. I've just opened D.E. McCluskey _author on Instagram. D.E. McCluskey 1, which does me head in, by the way, on Twitter. Whoever got D.E. McCluskey before me, yeah, I just had to get that one. Yeah. So you can get me on all of them. I'm all over Amazon as well. I sell on Amazon as Dave McCluskey and D.E. McCluskey for my kids' books as well as my adult ones.
Excellent.
And you can always get in touch with me as well, because I always have stock in. So if anybody wants a signed copy, then you know, I'm more than I'll post anywhere in the world. But I just know post Brexit, them posted charges are just ridiculous.
Yes, they are.
They are. Yeah, yeah. So I'm not a big fan of Brexit, by the way. So it's just, yeah. Well, we're not going into politics. No,
right.
we'll be here till we'll be here till next Thursday. Yeah.
No one wanted it in the northwest of England anyway.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Dave, thanks so much for coming on to the show, and the very best of luck with Glimmer and the rest of the series, and the special stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me, because and actually understanding me as well, because I know your Mancunian brogue there was is a little bit at odds to my Scouse. I don't think Scousers have got a brogue, have they? I think it's just abrasive. Yeah.
You know,
abrasions.
We put allegiances aside
to one side. Yeah,
books and fantasy,
definitely.
And horror. For everyone who's watched until the end, thank you very much, and until next time, have a good one.
All right, thank you.